DNS is a vital part of Active Directory, and you're going to be expected to answer exam questions about DNS and its interactivity with Active Directory. So let's go over some DNS basics in this video. Make sure we're all on the same page. First of all, if I told you, hey, there's a great website I'd like you to go take a look at, it's www.207.46.232.182.com. Could you remember that? Probably not. But what if I said www.microsoft.com? You can remember Microsoft.com. Well, that is precisely what DNS does for it. It basically takes this IP address right here, this number, and it converts it into an English word or a word that we can read. DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it simply translates IP addresses into names and names into IP addresses. Let's take a look at a real quick little diagram here of what's going on. First of all, there are root servers out there where DNS is managed and operated. These have a list that point to a number of other servers, and here they are. Now here's what happens with DNS. We have this root of DNS, which is really nothing more than a text file that has the IP addresses of the server that's in charge of all the .com addresses, .net, .org, .edu, and so forth. Then under that, for example, Microsoft can register their name into the .com space, and that's exactly what happens when you call up and register your name. That is exactly what you're doing. You're simply getting yourself a listing in that .com namespace. And then from there, Microsoft can further subdivide their network internally down to the TechNet domain. Now don't let this confuse you. These are actually DNS domains, but don't confuse that with Active Directory domains. They're same type thing but different. How's that for a little confusion? Now notice that at the very top up here of the DNS namespace is called the root level. Down there at the .com, .net, edu, gov, info, all those guys, that's the first level. Second level is where we really jump into play here in the DNS world most of the time, and this is where we contact somebody, say GoDaddy or someone like that, and we actually register our domain name. And so we get the IP address that points to Microsoft.com, and we go in the .com listing, and now anybody in the world can query that and get it. And then TechNet's the third level. So what happened is Microsoft went out and they registered, and they got 207.46.232.182, and now they are listed in this .com domain. This is authoritative for anything ending in .com. The Microsoft domain, where this address points to the server that provides DNS records for the Microsoft domain, and it is authoritative for all addresses inside the Microsoft domain. And then there's another IP address that was registered for TechNet, so that's the one that's going to be authoritative for that. Now there's a bazillion ways to set this up. I just want you to see kind of what happens here so that you can understand what's going on here with a kind of a real world example. So let's say someone out there on the internet tries to go to www.microsoft.com. So here's a user, all right, and you can tell I'm an artist in my spare time, right? So here's a user, and they type into their computer www.microsoft.com. Well, we've got to find the server that has this IP address, 207.46.232.182. We don't know what that is. So what's going to happen is our person's network has no idea what a Microsoft.com is, and so what it does is it kicks the request up to the root, and it says, hey, what do you know about Microsoft.com? And it says, well, I'm not sure about Microsoft.com, but I can tell you where the .com world is, and so it points us down to the .com lists. So we look through the .com list, and it says, okay, A, B, C, D, F, G. Okay, here's M, yeah, Microsoft. Here's the Microsoft.com. You can find the Microsoft domain at this IP address. And so this information gets passed back to the user's computer, and then the search is actually carried out on the internet for 207.46.232.182, and boom, Microsoft pops up in the browser. So that's what DNS is doing for us. It's translating all those numbers, it's taking our names, turning them into numbers and so forth, allowing us to move around. Now DNS is what's called a distributed database because part of the listings, right, are right up here, part of them are right here, and then part of them are down here. Now what we'll talk about in the next couple of videos is how we're going to put all this into effect and manipulate it inside the Active Directory world.